Without a doubt, 2017 was a great year for gamers, and it certainly saw a number of excellent titles released on PC, including Prey, Divinity Original Sin 2, Wolfenstein 2, Battlegrounds, and many more. It's nice to talk about all the great games that were released this year, but we are also not going to let slide the games that really disappoint us. The following games simply weren't good enough, far from it. In fact, we have narrowed the list down to 5 worthy entries, which we will be going through in no particular order. Star Wars Battlefront 2. When talking about Battlefront 2, I do want to mention that some aspects of the game are genuinely fun. Multiplayer is a blast and the presentation captures the essence of Star Wars in such a brilliant way. There's a lot more content to enjoy. But the problems with Battlefront 2 are numerous. The much hyped single player campaign is very short and just complete garbage, to be honest. And the multiplayer progression system is one of the worst in modern multiplayer shooters. It's confusing and unnecessarily complicated with items, abilities and upgrades. As a regular player, the progression system just doesn't feel rewarding. And let's not forget the pay-to-win system that EA nearly thrust on all of us. If it wasn't for an enormous outcry for the community, loot crates you can buy with real money that give in-game advantages to players have no place in competitive games. It's a disgraceful money grab when the game already costs $60. And while EA did temporarily remove the ability to spend real money on loot crates at launch, there is no doubt you will be able to pay to win at some point in the future. This could have been a good game, maybe even great, but instead EA chased easy money and ruined the hard work of developers. Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda disappointed almost every Mass Effect fan. Looking back, I am not sure why I played 50 hours of this game because it isn't that good. The main story in particular wasn't that interesting. It takes a long time to kick into gear as well. The best parts and most interesting worlds are reached after a 15-year opening slog, which no doubt led to many players giving up early into the game. My main issue with Andromeda is that in many ways, it just didn't seem like a true Mass Effect game. The characters were weak and game suffered by poor animation. The choices you make throughout the story seem to have a very little impact and there weren't enough of them. The game is filled with tons of boring fetch quests rather than compelling side stories, and it's side quests that make or break a strong RPG. Middle-earth Shadow of War. Shadow of War is a boring game. The story is boring, the combat is dull and repetitive, and the ending is disgraceful. Oh, and there's loot boxes with microtransactions too, just to cap off one of 2017's great disappointments. It's a real shame Shadow of War turned out in such a bad state, because Shadow of Mordor was a fantastic, innovative game that could have led to an interesting, equally inventive sequel. Instead, Shadow of War is basically a stretched out of Shadow of Mordor, with a couple of minor gameplay additions. Siege battles are a lot of fun, by the far the best aspect to the game, and it was nice to see a larger variety of environments, but the Nemesis system feels stale and the story isn't interesting in the slightest. And let's take a moment to talk about the ending. Shadow of War gives you 20 consecutive fortress defenses of increasing difficulty. 20! It's a 5+ hour repetitive grind. You are better off just watching the final cutscene it unlocks on YouTube. I'm not sure who thought this ending was a good idea, but it's a disgusting finish to a very disappointing blockbuster game of 2017. Need for Speed Payback. Everyone's least favorite game publisher has entered this list for a third time with Need for Speed Payback. So congratulations EA for having 3 of 2017's most disappointing games. I'm not quite sure why EA continues to make Need for Speed games, as it feels like the last decade of entries has been a subpar. Payback could be the worst entry yet. The story is laughably bad, with terrible characters, though that isn't surprising for a racing game. The worst part of Payback is that it's not a very satisfying driving experience, especially compared to the better racing games of 2017, and it compounds with bad gameplay and a bad upgrade system. It's the last racing game you should play in 2017 if you are a fan of the genre. And to be honest, EA should retire the series for a while if it can't make good entries anymore. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Wait, what? After hearing this name in this list, you would be like, damn! You will be wondering why we have put Battlegrounds in our most disappointing games list when the game is clearly one of the best games of this year. Well, before you start slamming us in the comments, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is a great example of a game that gets a lot of things right, but lets down players in other areas. In that sense, it's both a great and disappointing title. One of the key issues with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is optimization. The game is not the prettiest and for some reason, even with the latest release, runs poorly on a range of hardware. AMD users are hit the hardest, whether they have Ryzen CPUs or Radeon GPUs. And while those with Nvidia Intel systems fare a bit better, the frame rates you get aren't great to say at the least. It was easy to forgive PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for these issues in early access, but despite a large development team and plenty of resources, the game is still poorly optimized and even at the official launch. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds also suffers from technical issues and bugs, many of which seem connected to the network code. Sluttering and rubber banding is reasonably common, at least the last time I jumped in, though there's also problems like texture pop in and random graphical glitches. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds need a fair bit of work to improve how it performs, though the current technical problems are not exactly going to stop people from playing. It's a ton of fun despite the problem, that's for sure. The 5 we listed in this article aren't the only disappointing games of 2017. Several other titles failed to live up to the expectations, including Call of Duty World War II, Ghost Recon Wildlands, Lawbreakers, Agents of Mayhem, and even Destiny 2. There was no shortage of games that failed to live up to the hype in 2017. Maybe nothing quite as bad as the No Man's Sky disaster of 2016. Though loot boxes and microtransactions certainly dominated discussions this year. 2018 should be a bumper crop of games, especially on PC. So there's plenty of potentially great looking stuff to look forward to. So guys, please make sure that you hit that like button and also please subscribe to my channel and comment #part2 if you want second part of this video. Thank you.